Several years ago, Maureen O'Hara, and as I always remind people, it's not that Maureen O'Hara for the actress, gave a talk to the Jesuit community on the five wishes, which had a big, huge influence on many of us, including myself, in kind of making sure that you filled it out and perhaps even sharing it certainly with the rector, but also with some family members who, like, I want to do eulogies and so forth. And we were very impressed by that. Now, she was a nurse at Stanford Hospital in the cancer ward for some 30 odd years, where I'm sure she had lots of occasions to talk about the five wishes. So I turn it over to her as she'll explain to you what the five wishes are and how you might go about using them. So, Maureen.
Thank you, Father. I will have to admit that a couple of years ago, when I was asked by Father Tim Godfrey, who was the new rector at Loyola House, to speak with regards to the five wishes, I don't know if I've ever been so unnerved thinking that I was going to sit there and teach 35 Jesuits something that they didn't already know. But as Father said, my name is Maureen O'Hara, and I am an alum of USF School of Nursing and Health Profession, class of 1972, which is almost 50 years ago. I find that hard to believe. And upon graduation in 1972, I started as a new grad RN on Stanford Hospital's inpatient oncology unit. And I retired 42 years later from my one and only job. And my oncology nursing career at Stanford for me was a blessed, enriching, gratifying experience, both on the professional and the personal level. And as Father said, in that time, I worked with countless patients and their families as they addressed end-of-life issues. And the fact is, many people, and probably most people, find it very challenging to bring up end-of-life conversations with their family members and their loved ones. Let's face it, Americans tend to avoid talking about death. It's not a popular subject to talk about. These conversations, I guarantee you, are not easy. I recently listened to a podcast on end-of-life discussions that was sponsored by 3 Quaker ministers. And one of the moderators mentioned that when thinking about this topic, she remembered a quote from Mr. Rogers, Fred Rogers, who said, quote, "Anything that's human is memorable. And anything that is, I take it back. Anything that's human is mentionable. And anything that is mentionable can be more manageable. And so when we talk about our feelings, they become less overwhelming, less upsetting, and less scary. And the people that we trust with that important talk can help us know that we are not alone and that we can have these difficult discussions and conversations together," unquote. The bottom line is we have to be willing to talk about end-of-life decision-making, preferably before we are faced with a serious illness or a sudden unexpected circumstance that will not allow us to verbalize our own wishes. You know, sadly, if this pandemic has taught us anything, it is that tomorrow is promised to no one, irregardless of age. And so again, I say that we have to be willing to talk about end-of-life decision-making. And by doing so, you can take over control of the experience, and it allows you to help empower your family and your friends and the healthcare providers to make the best decisions when the time comes, and help avoid disagreement about what to do if you are unable to verbalize your wishes. If you can put it into this perspective of letting your end of life wishes be known that it is an absolute gift. It's a gift to your family and your friends, and it's a gift to the healthcare providers. Consider the alternative. Without an advance directive, our healthcare system has the capability and technology to extend end of life, which can prolong suffering that can be absolutely heartbreaking. Being attached to tubes, monitors, ventilators, with limited visiting hours in an ICU, and that was pre-pandemic. We all know what COVID-19 has brought upon us this past year with sudden, unexpected end-of-life issues and people dying in an ICU without family or friends able to be at their side and not knowing perhaps what their wishes might have been. And again, age has nothing to do with it. So it's within this framework that I introduced the 5 Wishes legal document, and I'll discuss how it differs from a standard advanced healthcare directive. But first, let me go into a little history as to how and when this document came to be. There's a gentleman named Jim Toohey. He's an American former government official, academic administrator, and attorney who in his work met Mother Teresa in Calcutta in 1985. And shortly thereafter, he began working as a United States legal counsel to Mother Teresa for 12 years until her death in 1997. For one of those years, he was a full-time live-in volunteer in a hospice for AIDS patient in Washington, DC, that was run by Mother Teresa. And inspired by this firsthand experience, Toohey sought a way for patients and their families to plan ahead on how to cope with serious illness. So in 1996, a year before Mother Teresa died, he established the nonprofit organization called Aging with Dignity. And then along with doctors, nurses, lawyers, and other experts in end-of-life care, he co-authored the original version of the 5 Wishes, which is a combined advance directive for healthcare and a living well to help people of all ages, not just the seniors among us, but for all ages, to get the treatment they want, and just as importantly, the treatment they don't want at the end of life if they become seriously ill. And so how does the 5 Wishes differ from your traditional standard durable power of attorney for healthcare and advance directive, of which many of you might already have? The standard advanced healthcare directive only includes the medical and the legal needs of a patient and their family. It is more disease-oriented than person-oriented. Whereas the 5 Wishes is a comprehensive, person-centered advanced care planning that will trigger effective, thorough, and compassionate conversation with your families. Referring back to the podcast I told you about with the 3 Quaker ministers, quote, "Death is not just a medical event. It is a deeply personal, emotional, and spiritual moment. And that an advanced directive such as the 5 Wishes assures us that our God-given human dignity will be protected and affirmed." The hallmark of the 5 Wishes is its simplicity and its clarity. It is written in everyday language, not legalese, making it really easy to understand and complete. And it covers personal, spiritual, psychosocial, medical, and legal wishes all in one document. And it allows your family and your healthcare providers to know exactly what you want, or again, just as importantly, what you don't want, relieving them from the difficult position of guessing your wishes. So let me review what is included in the 5 wishes. And this document is something that if you just Google 5 wishes, it will come up and you can download from your computer. And it will look like this, the 5 wishes. And it comes in a booklet. And what are those 5 wishes? Well, the first wish, and I will be reading from this, the first wish is the person I want to make care decisions for me when I can't. The second wish is the kind of medical treatment I want or don't want. The third wish is how comfortable I want to be. The fourth wish is how I want people to treat me. And the last wish is what I want my loved ones to know. And I'll go into a little bit of detail on all of those. Again, without boring you too much, because you will be able to download this and see the exquisite detail that goes into these decisions. So the first wish, the person I want to make healthcare decisions for me when I can't make them for myself. Now, in the traditional standard durable power of attorney for healthcare, all it has is a line to put your first choice and then your second choice. It doesn't have anything to do with explaining how important it is to make the choice of who that person or persons is going to be. In the 5 wishes, it makes it really clear that choose someone who knows you very well, who cares about you, and who can make difficult decisions. In most cases, that people assume that that may be your spouse or a family member. And only you are going to know whether that's true or not. But in other cases, it isn't the right choice. You might feel that your family member will become so emotional that it will be overwhelming to them. They will be guilt-ridden, and they oftentimes may not follow through with what your documented wishes are. So again, it's somebody who you know very well, who cares about you, and who can make difficult decisions. The second wish is my wish for the kind of medical treatment I do or I don't want. And this goes into much detail about what life support means to you, because what it may mean to you may be something totally different than what it means to somebody else. And it goes very detailed into what your feel of life support is. And on any of these wishes, you have the ability to cross out anything that you don't agree with that's in the document, in addition to be able to add in anything that you want known in that document. And what is beautiful, I think, about the wish number 2 is that it goes into much more detail than the traditional standard advanced directive for healthcare. And it goes into 4 different scenarios. Again, nothing of which is included in a standard health directive. The scenarios are: number 1, I am close to death. Number 2, I am in a coma and not expected to wake up or recover. Number 3, I have a permanent and severe brain damage and I'm not expected to recover. And number 4, in another condition under which I do not wish to be kept alive. And under these 4 scenarios, there are 3 choices. The first choice is, I want to have life support treatment. The second choice is, I do not want to have life support treatment, and if it has been started, I want it stopped. And lastly, I want to have life support treatment if my doctor believes it might help. But I want my doctor to stop giving me life support treatment if it is not helping my health condition or my symptoms. And again, those 4 scenarios with those 3 choices. Again, something that is not in your standard advanced health corrective. Wish number 3, my wish on how comfortable I want to be. And again, you can cross out anything that's here and add anything that you wish. Under this comfort measures, I do not want to be in pain. I want my doctor to give me enough medicine to relieve my pain, even if that means I will be drowsy or sleep more than I would otherwise. If I show signs of nausea, shortness of breath, hallucinations, I want my caregivers to do whatever they can to help me with that. It goes into very specifics, such as I wish to have a cool, moist cloth put on my head if I have a fever. I want my lips and mouth kept moist to stop dryness. I wish to have warm baths often. I wish to be kept fresh and clean at all times. I wish to have my favorite music played if possible until my death. I wish to have personal care like shaving, nail clipping, hair brushing, teeth brushing, as long as they do not cause me pain or discomfort. I wish to have religious readings and well-loved poems read aloud when I am near death. I wish to know about options for hospice care to provide medical, emotional, and spiritual care for not only me, but for my loved ones. Wish number 4, my wish for how I want people to treat me. And again, you can cross out anything that's here and add anything that you want. I wish to have people with me when possible. I want someone to be with me when it seems that death may be coming at any time. I wish to have my hand held and to be talked to when possible, even if I don't respond to the voice or the touch of others. I wish to have members of my faith community told that I am sick and to pray for me. I wish to be cared for with kindness and cheerfulness, not sadness. I wish to have pictures of my loved ones in my room near my bed. I want to die in my home. If that cannot be done, I want to know about alternative measures such as a skilled nursing facility followed by hospice or an inpatient residential hospice home. Wish number 5, my wish for what I want my loved ones to know. And again, cross out anything, add anything. I wish to have my family and friends know that I love them. I wish to be forgiven for the times I have hurt my family and friends. I wish to have my family and friends and others know that I forgive them when they may have hurt me in my lifetime. I wish for my family and friends to know that I do not fear death itself. I think it is not an end, but a new beginning for me. I wish for all of my family members to make peace with each other before my death, if they can. I wish for my family and friends to think about what I was like before I became seriously ill. I want them to remember me in this way after my death. I wish for my family and friends and caregivers to respect my wishes, even if they do not agree with them. After my death, I would like my body to be buried or cremated. My body or remains should be put in the following location. The following person knows my funeral wishes. If there is to be a memorial service for me, I wish for this service to include the following. You can list the music, the songs, the readings, or other specific requests that you have. And there is a space then below that you can put any other thing that you want to add, such as if you want to be an organ donor, or if you may want to designate a charity to receive memorial contributions in your name. And I think that just as a real quick review of that, you will know how different that is from the traditional advanced healthcare directive if you've already filled one out. So some details to review about this. First of all, the 5 Wishes is a legal document in 44 states and Washington, D.C. And since it was started in 1996, it has been around in existence for 25 years. The states where it isn't a legal document are Indiana, New Hampshire, Kansas, Ohio, Oregon, and Texas. But even in those 6 states, many people have used the 5 Wishes in combination with the legal document of the standard advanced healthcare directive that gives people an understanding of what they want and what they don't want. It is published in 30 different languages and Braille. And it's a good idea to review and possibly update your 5 Wishes when you experience significant life events like a marriage, a divorce, having children, or being diagnosed with a major illness. Interesting for me is when I spoke with Robert Nolan, your director of communications for St. Ignatius, we had a call on Wednesday just to talk about this presentation. And he threw me a question that I was totally unprepared for, because I thought we were just going to be talking about details of this presentation. And he said, Maureen, how do you view the 5 Wishes within the framework of Jesuit spirituality and Ignatian spirituality? And I thought, whew, what a question. But what I realized was that the answer came to me instantly. First of all, one of the tenets of Jesuit spirituality is men and women in service to others. And the 5 Wishes, as I said before, is an absolute gift. And it's a gift in service to your family, your loved ones, and to the healthcare professionals that are going to be taking care of you at the end of your life. And then a second Jesuit tenet that really came to mind was the tenet of cura personalis, which is the care for the whole person. As I stated before, that death is not just a medical event. It is a deeply personal, emotional, psychosocial, and a spiritual moment. And the 5 Wishes embraces that cura personalis of whole person concept for both the individual and those that love them. And lastly, I think of the Jesuit tenet of the Magus, the AMDG, for the greater glory of God, and that we strive, and we always strive for the greater, and we strive for that Magus. And it is the greater part of ourselves that allows this gift to be given to our family and our caregivers, because it is not easy. It requires more than your normal emotional commitment. And that is the Magus in us that allows us to do it. So I'm looking at the time and I think I'm winding down. I am happy to answer any questions. Father Coleman has my contact information so that if you start thinking about this after you've downloaded the document and read it, I'd be happy to talk with you about it afterwards. I know that happened when I had the presentation with the Jesuits up at Loyola House. The next week, I had a number of the Jesuits call me and to help clarify anything. If you have a standard directive, advanced healthcare directive, and you then choose to change it to this 5 Wishes, then it's just a matter of after you've signed, after you've gone over this, after you've discussed it with your family members, it requires only a witness. It does not have to have anything other than a witness, then you can destroy your previous document and then keep a copy for yourself, give copies to your family, give copies to your healthcare provider. I'm trying to think, Father Coleman, have I left anything out that we discussed when I presented?
No, I think it's terrific, but I wanted to add something to what you said. I think it's to the fifth wish. Among other things, you can say who you want to do a eulogy at the Mass. So I've asked a first cousin and a niece already, so they know it, And I chose them because they know me, flaws and all, and they're also honest. So it would not be just, burning incense,
Right.
but the truth. Okay. But that's part of it. You can tell them in advance.
You can select who you want to say your Mass.
Yes, I've done that too. Yeah,
where you want it to be done.
Yeah, right.
Who do you want to be your pallbearers? Do you want a reception afterwards? And if you stop and think about what a gift this is to your family, it allows them to be just part of your dying process without having all this emotional baggage of what should we do, what shouldn't we do, that they're allowed to be with you. Now, of course, the pandemic has also changed that.
Right.
But it allows you to be present for the dying process with your loved ones. So my last, on a much lighter note, it is March, and with the name of Maureen O'Hara, this is my month. St. Patrick's Day is right up there with Christmas in my family. So on a lighter note, I would like to leave you with a very favorite Irish blessing of mine. May love and laughter light your days and warm your heart and home. And may good and faithful friends be yours wherever you may roam. Thank you. Thank you, Father, for asking me to present this.
And I suppose now we can ask if people may want to make comments or ask some questions.
I have an Irish blessing also, another O'Hara.
Jim O'Hara.
May the devil know you're in heaven a half hour after you're dead.
That's right.
You're right. I remember that.
What kind of witness should there be?
It's a good question. And because this document is so detailed, it will tell you exactly who your witnesses can and can't be.
Okay, thank you.
And yeah, let's see here. In terms of the witnesses.
Could it be a relative, a friend, stranger?
It tends to not want to be a relative. Your healthcare agent should be at least 18 years old, or if you're in Colorado, 21 years old, and should not be your healthcare provider, including the owner or operator of a health or residential or community care facility that's serving you. It should not be an employee or spouse of an employee of your healthcare provider. And that it should probably not be anybody who is the one that is making those decisions for you, or anybody who might benefit from your death, such as somebody who is in your will and will be getting financial or get money from you for that. I know that in a hospital setting, we actually have an office of volunteers. We have a volunteer come up and do it. Or if it's something that is something that becomes very sudden, that they've done nothing, oftentimes we will ask a family member of another patient to be the one. All that you're doing is witnessing that the person is signing it themselves. That's all you're doing. You're not saying anything as to what the content of the 5 wishes is. You as a witness are only doing that to say that you have witnessed them signing it, and that it's not under duress. There are a few states that require it to be notarized. Very few. I can't remember. It's also in that document. But in California, it does not have to be notarized. It only has to be witnessed, and it has to be witnessed by two people.
Two.
Yes, yes. The other thing, just as a point, if you happen to be traveling and you are going to visit, I have a sister who lives in South Bend, Indiana, for example. If I am back there and I'm in an auto accident and I'm rushed to the ICU and I'm on a ventilator and, I can't say anything about what I want. The fact is that as long as I have that document, and my sisters would have that document, that I have that document that was signed in California, then all 50 states will have reciprocity with that. They will, even though it may not be something that is legal in their state, the fact that I'm a California resident and that I had it signed in California, it will then continue to be a legal document in any of those 6 states where you might be traveling.
That's great. I think you can have a neighbor sign for you if you have a good neighbor.
You do. That's exactly right.
I mean, because I have some neighbors that are very close, so they would be able to sign.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Actually, mine is signed by my neighbor.
I have a question. A few years ago, we had made advanced care directives, and then our physician had us also sign something called the PULSE. I'm not sure what that stands for.
PULSE-
How does that fit in with this?
So a PULSE is a physician order for life-saving treatment. And it comes in a very bright pink document, a single sheet that I think, especially if you live alone, again, no matter what age, that usually is left on the refrigerator, so that if a 911 is called from your home, first responders know to look for that pulse. And on the pulse, again, very basic. Do I want life support and life affirming measures, or I do not want those? And I say that because oftentimes people who are at end of life on hospice at home, no matter how much instruction you may give to a family member, the bottom line is that the moment of death is like you have never been prepared whatsoever. And that a family member, even though they've been told, and even though they know in their mind, I need to call hospice, I don't need to call 911. It has happened that the family member will pick up that telephone and call 911. Now, if 911 is called, first responders have to respond. They have to show up. And so if then the family member says, I'm sorry, this was a mistake. My husband's on hospice, my wife's on hospice, and they have that pink pulse, the physician order for life-sustaining treatment, which if you're on hospice will say, I want no life-sustaining treatment. Then that can be given to the first responders, who can then say, no, we don't have to start CPR. We don't need to get you in an ambulance. So it's yet another legal document that you can keep in your home, and very basic. Do you want life-sustaining measures? Do you not want life-sustaining measures? It's a good question.
Maureen, I have a question.
Sure.
Have you experienced the issue of people making a decision about when to turn off their pacemaker, and how that process goes, and any insights on that?
I don't know. I'm not a cardiology nurse, so I don't know how that works. But again, I lost the 5 wishes. One of those wishes is if I'm on life support and I don't want it, then I want that life support to be stopped. And that makes it very clear, so that if you are on a pacemaker, then it would be reasonable with that stated wish with your family, who's the healthcare directive, to say, I want the pacemaker. It's really no different than saying, my loved one is on a ventilator. There is going to be no end to this. They are not going to recover. I want them to be extubated and let them die naturally. So it would be something along those lines.
Yeah, I went through this with my father, actually. He was on a pacemaker and it went off 17 times.
Mm.
And the thing is, the medical system is not designed to take you off of any of those devices. And it's a hard decision for a spouse.
It's a very hard decision.
Make.
Yeah.
And if you don't bring it up, it's not gonna
And that's the whole
brought
point.
up.
You don't want the situation where all of a sudden you're facing it and that's the first time you've thought about it, or that's the first time that you realized you haven't talked about it. I can remember a young patient that I took care of who was in his 30s with acute leukemia. And he had achieved remission and was okay for about 1.5 years. And then the leukemia relapsed. And he was married. He had a one-year-old son. His wife was from Ireland. Her entire family was back in Ireland. And Michael's family was, local. And he became very ill, became septic, and needed to be transferred to the ICU. And the physician, came up to his wife and said, is this something that you and Michael have talked about going to the intensive care unit? And she said, no. And she said, I've tried talking to him, but he doesn't want to talk about it. And at that point, he was too ill at that point to say what he wanted. And it was a reasonable decision to go to the ICU because he had completed chemotherapy, but we had not yet done a repeat bone marrow biopsy to know if he was in remission again. So it was reasonable for somebody in their young 30s who may still get a remission out of this. And so up to the ICU he goes. So at the end of my shift, I go up to the ICU waiting room and his family had left, but Maria was there. And I'll never forget it. And she goes, Maureen, if he survives this, I'm going to kill him. I'm going to kill him. I have tried talking to him about this the whole time when he was first diagnosed. Didn't want to talk about it. When he was in remission, let's talk about this. When he relapsed, didn't want to talk about this. I'm going to kill him for putting me in this situation. And you don't want it to be that scenario where you don't know what they want. Any other questions that you can think of? Well, like I said, Father Coleman has my contact information. And if you download this document and have questions about it, don't hesitate to ask Father Coleman for my email.
This is
Hey, Mary,
Louise.
go
I
ahead.
had just a quick question. I just wonder, how do people figure out, like, if you want to be intubated or not? I mean, I know in this time of COVID, some people who were survived and some people who were did not. But how to get information Like, are there informational people at hospitals or medical centers that can talk about this? I've never been able to figure out if this is a yes or a no. I mean, I just wonder how do people know? I mean, do they talk to their doctor and get basic?
It is the medical team who will talk to somebody and say, you know, every intervention that we're doing now is not helping, and you are going to tire of breathing this way without help from a ventilator. We don't know if the ventilator will be something that will help you. We don't know if you'll get off the ventilator. And they have to be, they're very difficult decisions. And again, with the 5 wishes, it says, if my physician feels that this may help my symptoms, then I want them to do it. But when it becomes clear that it's not, then I want that removed. And, you know, pre-pandemic, those decisions and discussions after the patient is intubated, because in most cases where a patient is intubated, they become unaware because they're medicated, because our natural response to having this machine breathe for you is to yank it out. And so, you know, they're put into an induced coma so that they don't fight off the vent. So pre-pandemic, they would be then in discussion with the family in person at the bedside as to, this is time to make the decision that we do not think that this is going to help the patient. Pandemic, that's what becomes heartbreaking, is that these decisions are on Zoom and you've got an iPad saying goodbye to your loved one because, I mean, thankfully, and I'm very selfish in this regard, I'm very glad that I'm not working in the midst of the pandemic and that I'm retired. You know, to have those discussions without family members there, without saying goodbye via Zoom, those are heart-wrenching decisions. And that is why I have the utmost respect and pride for my fellow caregivers and healthcare professionals who have been doing this for a solid year. And there is no doubt in my mind that when this pandemic is over, you're going to be looking at post-traumatic stress for the healthcare providers who have witnessed this day in and day out over the past year.
Thank you, Maureen. I'm in a little bit hesitant to ask the question, but I think it's an important one. When making your decision of whether or not to use life-sustaining measures, we kind of, we talk about, well, I don't want something if I'm completely brain dead, or if I have life-ending cancer or something. But what about the state of one's mind? For example, if someone has a dementia and the dementia is increasing, and should we put a feeding tube when they don't want to eat anymore?
Well, again,
you know, the quality of life.
If you have filled out one of these under the wish number 2, when I said there are 4 different scenarios. One is close to death. One is I'm in a coma and not expected to wake up or recover. Number 3, permanent and severe brain damage and not expected to recover. But number 4, where it says another condition under which I do not wish to be kept alive. And those are the kind of scenarios that we're talking about. I have, God bless her, a 99-year-old mother. And she defines the term elderly fragile. She is weak. She is totally dependent on her activities of daily living. She is she's been over at Mercy Retirement Center in Oakland now for 10 years. She is sharp as a tack, and she has no underlying health condition. She was a strong Irish woman who went from Murphy and then married an O'Hara. Her mind is good. Her heart, her lungs, her kidneys, her liver, everything is fine, but she has a 99-year-old body. And so she has made it crystal clear to us and to the people at Mercy that if for some reason something happens to her, let's say she starts choking and aspirates on some food, let me be, call hospice. I do not want to be taken to an ER. I do not want to be taken to a hospital. And so what you're saying comes under that wish number 2, that another condition under which I do not wish to be kept alive. You know, it's not always a cancer. It's not always dementia. It's not always, I've had a heart attack and I've been rushed to the ER and I'm on a ventilator now and I can't let you know what I want. There are other conditions where you make it clear that you do not want to be kept alive. And you write those conditions in.
There's a book by Atul Gawande called Being Mortal.
Being Mortal.
that
Beautiful.
is really helpful in thinking through some of these decisions I found.
It's a
So
beautiful book.
it's out there. Well, we are coming to noon. We're just past noon, so I think we should close.